Deathless Titans placed upon the face of the earth 3 generations of men, the first of them being men of gold. Becoming too close to gods themselves, Cronus ended their time on earth with an eternal sleep. A second generation came to be, the men of silver. Unwilling to serve the Titans and make sacrifices upon the holy altars, as all men shall do, they were condemned to dwell under the earth for all eternity. Finally, a third generation, the men of bronze, a brazen race, sprung from the ash tree. Terrible and strong are they. Join me as I tell you the tales of the men of bronze. This is Dragon's Blood, Odyssey to Dionysodoros, Episode 5. Gamden woke in a dimly lit room. A single oil lamp burned on the table in the corner. He couldn't remember how he got there, and his head hurt from the cheap wine. Never again, he muttered to himself as he slowly sat up. The next thought that came to him was where his pouch of gold and diamonds was. He felt for it around his neck. It wasn't there. Waves of nausea mixed with nervous anxiety caused him to break into a cold sweat. He got out of bed and staggered to where his clothes lay in a pile on the floor. Going through his coat pockets, pants pockets, and shirt pockets, he found nothing. He couldn't go back to Draman and ask for more gold. He would look the fool explain to him that a prostitute made off with all he had. Gamden stopped, sat down, and held his head in his hands, and said to himself, "Think, Gamden, where did you put the gold?" It literally hurt to think. Slowly memories came to him. Memories such as walking into the room with a girl under his arm, and Sunesret with the girl over his shoulder. The next memory was of him and the girl kissing and groping each other. She got up and went to use the chamber pot, and he started to undress. Gamden stood up and said out loud, "My boots! It's in my boots!" Running across the room, he tripped over Sunesret, sprawled across the floor naked and snoring. Crawling on his hands and knees the rest of the way, he reached his boots and turned them upside down, and the pouch fell to the floor with a thud, still full. Gamden rolled over onto his back, holding the pouch close to his heart, thanking Zeus for his good fortune. After lying there for a good half hour, he got to his feet again and muttered, "Never again." While dressing, Gamden went over in his head what needed to be done before they left Kamlaset. First on the list, go to Kefu's mansion and see him. Hopefully get some of his gadgets for the road. Next, back to Nebeta and find a ship to get them to Dionysodoros. He got up out of his chair and walked over to where Sunesret still lay on the floor snoring. Nudging him with his toe of his boot, he said, "Wake up, we gotta go. Come on, let's go." When he didn't wake up, Gamden sat on his chest, going up and down with each deep breath. Gamden waited for him to wake up, but he just kept on snoring. He rapped on Sunesret's forehead with his knuckles and said again, "Wake up! We gotta go! Come on! Let's go!" Sunesret opened his eyes and slowly focused on Gamden, sitting on his chest, and said, "Did I ever have a good time last night? Those 2 girls sure were fun." He rolled over, causing Gamden to hit the floor, flat on his back. Once he was standing, Sunesret continued while stretching, "We gotta go back downstairs and find us a couple more girls for tonight." Still sitting on the floor, Gamden looked up at him and said, "We can't do that." "Why not? You got lots of coin. Maybe you can even get Kadir for the night." Gamden held out his hand and Sunesret pulled him up off the floor. "We have to get going. Actually, We should have been at Kefu's mansion last night. Why? What's the big rush? Don't you remember? I told you last night that we have to go to Azurda. Sunesret thought about it for a couple of seconds and said, Well, I had a lot to drink last night. I really don't remember anything before we got up to the room. You haven't changed a bit, said Gamden with a laugh. Now put your clothes on and let's get going. Okay. But first we should stop and get some wine for the walk. No way, you big bastard. You don't need no more. You drank enough wine last night to drown a horse. Pleading with him as he put on his coat. Just one bottle. Please, Gamden. Gamden walked over to the door, opened it, and said in a stern voice, Get going, you big bastard. No more wasting time. They walked out the front door of the Wild Hog into a bright, sunny morning. Both Gamden and Sunesret took off their coats and slung them over their haversacks. They walked to the nearest fountain, enjoying the warm sun. Filling up their water skins, they also filled their bellies and enjoyed a quick wash. The entire time, Gamden kept an eye out for the city guard. It was early enough that their patrols were just starting. When he finished washing, he rummaged through his sack and pulled out a hooded cloak and put it on. How come you wearing that? Asked Sunesret. Got to keep myself hidden. Guard will be out soon. Sunesret looked around, but the street was still basically empty. Oh yeah, that's right. If they find you, they're going to kick your ass into the city lockup. With a concerned tone in his voice, he continued, Maybe you should pay me now. You know, just in case. Stop your belly aching, laughed Gamden, as he locked the clasp around his neck of the cloak and drew the hood to cover his features. They avoided all the main streets on their way to the gates out of the city. Along the way, they stopped for breakfast and some extra food for the walk to the mansion. When they got to the gate, they waited for a bit until the traffic in and out was steady enough that they could blend into the crowd. Outside the walls of the city, Gamden finally relaxed and removed his cloak. The inner walls of Sunesret had only one main gate. That meant an extra half-hour walk on top of the two to the mansion. The entire time they were walking, Sunesret complained about the fact that they only had water, but no wine for him to drink. There were a couple of times he almost turned back to the city, but the thought of losing all that gold and diamonds kept him walking. Finally, at the mansion, Gamden pounded on the door and shouted, Wake up, Kefu! It's your old apprentice! Gamden! Not a sound was heard from the old mage's home. Gamden looked at Sunesret and said, I hope the old man is all right. It has to be almost 10 years since I left. Gamden pounded on the door one more time, and when he still didn't get a response, he said, Come on with me, Sunesret. I know a secret entrance into the Kefu's home. But be careful. Kefu had many enemies, and he set up traps all over the grounds. I know most of his traps and where he set them, but he's very smart and probably hit a few more since I've been gone. Just stay behind me, but not too close. I can't see the traps when I'm in your shadow, you big bastard. Gamden turned around and looked up at Sunesret and gave him a good shove, barely moving him. Slowly they made their way to the walled courtyard at the back. Okay, said Gamden. Break me off a long branch from that tree behind you. Sunesret turned around and snapped off a branch, without effort, then handed it over. I remember that Kefu would use the silk of a black widow to make wire from. So thin it's almost invisible, but strong enough to cut through skin and bone. Gamden held on to the branch as he draped it over the top of the wall. A finger length above the wall, the branch seemed to stop in midair. There it is, chuckled Gamden. Watch this. He pulled back on the branch and they heard the wire snap. From the top of the post at the other end of the wall, a blowgun ejected a poison dart that stuck into the branch Everything in this place can be dangerous. Sunesret nodded his head and repeated, dangerous. Got it. Come on over here, Gamden said, as he pointed to a specific spot. Stand up against the wall so I can climb up on your shoulders and get into the courtyard. Sunesret backed up against the wall, bent over, and formed a stirrup by weaving his fingers together. Gamden stepped into the stirrup and braced himself against Sunesret's shoulders, ready to climb over the fence, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, counted down Sunesret, and on 3 he launched Gamden over the wall, clearing it by at least 4 hands. Gamden landed on the other side with a thud. Sunesret stood where he was, laughing so hard he was doubled over. That was funny, shouted Gamden as he lay on the ground in pain. That only made Sunesret laugh even harder until he was crying. I'm serious, that really hurt, you big bastard. Sunesret composed himself, then scaled the wall, easily landing beside Gamden. You don't look hurt, said Sunesret, as he reached down and picked him up under the arms, standing him on his feet. Let me dust you off, giving him a good few pats on the back. Dust billowed from Gamden's clothes. There, good as new. Thanks, I think, squeaked Gamden in discomfort. Okay, let's get going. Gamden led the way, limping as he went. 3 more disarmed traps and 1 close call later, they made it to the back door. Finally, we made it, said Sunesret. I hope he has some wine in there. I'm so thirsty. I've got cactus sprouting on my tongue. Sunesret reached for the door latch. No, don't do that, shouted Gamden, and he lunged forward to grab his arm, but it was too late. Sunesret tried to slide the lock open. When he did, there was a loud click. Lightning sprang from the rune painted on the door and struck Sunesret in the chest. With a look of disbelief, Gamden asked, Are you okay, Sunesret? You look a little singed. In a voice barely audible, Sunesret asked, What was that? Then fell face first into the door. A smell of burnt clothing filled the air around them, from the massive discharge of electricity. You big bastard, Gamden said out loud. Thanks for finding that trap. But now, how am I supposed to get inside when you are blocking the door? Looking around, he found a small tree that had fallen near them and used it to lever him away from the door. With a crash, Sunesret fell over, unconscious, in the bushes. Gamden tried the door, but it was still locked. Going through his haversack, he found a ring full of old skeleton keys that he had made over the years. After trying several different keys, he found the one that worked. Gamden opened the door and walked into a solarium full of dead and dying plants. Kefu! Shouted Gamden. Kefu! Where are you? Where are you? The mansion was dark and felt empty, as if nothing or no one had moved there in weeks. I don't like this one bit, he said to himself as he went into the main sitting room. The doors of the library to his left were closed, and Gamden was taking no chances. He checked the door for a trap, but found nothing. Inside the room were the decaying remains of Kefu. His skeleton was still sitting up in his reading chair. What got you first, old man? Gamden asked the skeleton. Old age or an enemy? Gamden thoroughly searched the corpse. Can't find any stab wounds, and your skull is still in one piece. Old age it was that got you then. Or maybe poison. Another search of the garments turned up a small bag of coins and a key. I was hoping that you were going to have this on you. Saves me the trouble of picking that lock on your old chest, or having to rummage through this big house, where you have a million hiding places. Sunesret came around the corner with a bottle of wine in each hand. What happened out there? Last thing I remember was trying to open the door? It's a good thing you're such a big bastard, said Gamden. You sprung on one of Kefu's traps. You took a lightning bolt to the chest. Somebody my size would be cooked and dead. Guess I should thank you for disarming it. Why are we here anyway? Asked Sunesret. If we took such a big risk in coming here, there must be something you really want bad. Is it money? What we came here for will be much more important to us, said Gamden. We need to find a ratty old chest. Kefu was never very clean, and he would forget where he would put things, even something as valuable as his chest. It could be anywhere in this house. 2 hours and several bottles of wine later, they found the chest, buried in the back of a closet, on the second level. They cleared a spot on the floor and set the chest down. Carefully, Gamden looked at the chest, to make sure that Kefu hadn't set a trap on the chest as well. It looked clean, and Gamden was about to put the key in the lock, when he hesitated and said, No, this is too easy. The trap is that it's too easy. We need to take the chest outside. Gamden tried to pick up the chest, but couldn't. Sunesret, can you carry this outside for me? Sunesret finished off the bottle of wine in one gulp, belched, and picked the chest up like a sack of rags. When they had the chest in the back courtyard, Gamden hacked down a small tree and stripped the branches off. Once that was done, he took a Y-shaped branch and drove it firmly in the ground. Then he tied the key to the end of the tree and laid it into the Y-shaped stick. Gamden then counted the paces from the chest to the end of the small tree. I counted 20 paces, said Gamden. I think we should be safe. Safe from what? Asked Sunesret. Kefu was a very smart mage. I think that the trap goes off when you put the key in the lock. More lightning? Asked Sunesret. Who knows? Kefu forgot more than I know, and he still knew twice as much as I do now. I don't know what to use on the trap to disarm it, so it's going off no matter what, and I want to be a safe distance away when it does. Gamden slowly guided the key into the lock and turned it. There was a soft click as the lock opened, and then a loud click as the trap went off. A billowing green cloud exploded from the lock. In a split second, the cloud reached the two of them. Sunesret reacted even faster. He picked Gamden up, and with one arm, and threw him 20 paces easily. Then with one leap, he landed right beside him. Everything the cloud touched was killed by acid. See what I mean? Said Gamden. I forgot that he could do that. Acid cloud. Very nasty. Acid cloud, repeated Sunesret as he nodded. Very nasty. Well, Sunesret, we need to wait for that cloud to dissipate. Let's go find another bottle of wine. Gamden and Sunesret walked out of the house a few minutes later, with a bottle of wine each. The wind had finally dissipated the acid cloud. All the foliage within the radius of the cloud had been killed, and many birds, insects, and other wildlife littered the ground, either killed in the trees or where they stood in the long grass. It was a good thing that the lock on the chest had opened before the trap went off. The iron key was mostly melted away and had become fused with the lock. The two looked at each other and decided to go look at the chest. Is it safe now? Asked Sunesret. That was a nasty trap. Do you think there is another inside? I sure hope not, replied Gamden. Old Kefu was crafty, and he could make incredible little devices, almost all of them deadly, and very difficult to detect. If this old Kefu made such dangerous things, why do you still want to look inside? Sunesret asked. This is why. Gamden opened the chest, and inside were books scrolls, and strange-looking contraptions of all sorts, shapes, and sizes. Sunesret, hold open this bag for me so I can pick the things that we need for our travels. Gamden looked at all the scrolls and books. He took a few books and most of the scrolls. Near the bottom of the chest, he found 6 items in particular that he liked. See these, Sunesret? They're grenades. I've never seen anything like them, said Sunesret. What do they do? Kefu was talking about making these out of iron. Looks like he finally did it. Gamden pointed at the grenade and said, You light this fuse at the top and throw it at your enemy. Then you run and find cover. There is an explosive inside this. Boom! Kills a lot of enemies at the same time. Sounds like we are going to be doing a lot of fighting on this quest, said Sunesret. I think I should get more money for this. Don't worry about it. Gamden reached up and put his hand on Sunesret's shoulder. With these scrolls and inventions of Kefu's, we won't have any problems. What is on those scrolls that you took, anyway? Sunesret pointed at the bag on the ground. Mostly magic spells and maps of the distant lands that we are going to travel through. Now, let's hide the rest of these books and other things in the house. We have a lot more to do today, other than steal and drink. What do you mean? Shouted Sunesret. I'm starving, and some more wine would be perfect right now. Let's compromise then, you big hungry bastard, answered Gamden. We go through the market on our way to the docks for passage across the sea. It's a deal, said Sunesret. Look for episode 6 of Dragon's Blood, Odyssey to Dionysodoros, on YouTube.